Hi everyone, it's Mike here. So I'm back with another Halloween project. This time I'm going to be doing an 8-inch shadowbox frame assemblage, a Halloween assemblage in this shadowbox frame. Now this is a really inexpensive shadowbox. I've already taken the back off. Please excuse the reflection of my overhead camera, as you can see. Wave hello. So I'm going to decorate the outside of the frame first. So what I want to do is I want to put some, I'm going to paint it black. But first of all I want to add some texture to it. So I've got my Totes Amaze backed stencil and I'm just going to lay it across the top like so. And I've got some Winsor & Newton Galleria, or Galleria, because it's only got one L, acrylic medium, which is the heavy carvable modelling paste. Now it's quite difficult to get out of the pot, so I've done that already. I've actually taken some and put it onto one of my craft mats just to the side here, just to make it a little bit easier to work with. I haven't got a lot of room in which to do this, and I'm hoping I've kind of got this in the middle. I didn't really want to tape it down because I just didn't want to tape it down. So I'm just going to feed it through, and if I get any on the glass I can just wipe it off. I'm just going to wipe across. Really, actually there's a lump in that bit. This is typical. I am going, like I said, I am going to paint it black anyway, and then pick out some of those highlights. Come on, that's it. Lift it off. There we go. So we've got some bats just on the top, and I'm going to see if I can try and do the same thing again, this time without the lumps. He says at the bottom. Alright, so we can line that back up again, so that I think I've got it in the middle, pretty much, I think. And then I'll just swipe that modelling paste through the stencil. And then quickly lift it off. Nope, that didn't work very well, did it? Let's start again. Perhaps I've got too much on the stencil already. I should clean the stencil off. Ugh. Not a good start. Let's try with a different row. Let's start with a clean row down at the bottom here. There we go, that'll do. Perfect. Okay, so I'm going to go clean that off. I need to start getting this dried before I can do anything else. So I'm going to bring up the heat gun, gently heat it because I don't want to overheat the glass. And then once this is dry and ready for painting, I'll be right back. Okay, so my modelling paste is now completely dry and solid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring out my Dina Wakley black gesso, and I'm now going to paint the entire of the frame. And when I mean the entire of the frame, I mean the entire of the frame inside and out. So this is going to take a little bit of time, and I'm going to take a little bit of care when going around the glass, but I'll just do this bit here so you can see how I'm painting it, and I'm just going over the bats because I will be dry brushing over the top of those later with some nice metallic paint. So I'm just going to give it one coat of black gesso all the way around. Now obviously it's a long, laborious and very kind of boring job to do. Not necessarily to do, but definitely to watch. So I will just do a little bit of it so you can see how I'm getting on with it and what I've been doing or how I'm doing it, and then I'll skip to the end where it's almost, but not quite, almost finished. Okay, so while the frame is just finishing off drying, I thought I would prepare my next layer. So this is the back piece of board from the frame, and it's 8 inches by 8 inches. So what I've done is I've taken a piece of 12 by 12 paper that I was sent in a Happy Mail. I'm sorry, but I can't remember who sent it to me. Whoops. Big apologies. But I liked the fact that it was kind of like an orangey, kind of copperish background. In fact, the piece of paper is from a Kaisercraft collection. It's called the Scrapyard collection, and this one is particularly called Copper. So I've actually cut an 8 by 8 piece that's going to fit inside the frame. Actually, maybe just a little bit bigger. I just need to trim that down probably again, and this is going to be the base that I'm actually going to work on to build up my assemblage on, because it's got that kind of already got that grungy kind of background. I think it's perfect for what I need to do. Now, obviously, that being a little bit too big now, I just need to measure that so that I can trim it off. So I'm going to do that and then come straight back, and then we're going to start building or adding my pieces to my assemblage. I'll just trim that down. Perfect. That should just be the right size now. Brilliant. Perfect. Okay, so let me go and grab all my pieces that I want to add into my assemblage, and I'll be right back. Okay, so the first couple of pieces I want to use are from the Tim Holtz Halloween paper dolls collection. So I've got the witches, obviously, it's Halloween, I've got to use those at least once. I've got one from the Relatives collection, but I've also just cut the head off one other because I'm going to make that so he's actually holding the head. It is Halloween after all. I've also got a couple of pieces from the Halloween ephemera selection that I've actually cut out. There was a little like a Halloween greetings card, or 2 Halloween greeting card front, and I've actually cut out those jack-o'-lanterns from those as well. So I'm going to be using those to add in to my assemblage. But I also have these. So these were sent to me in Happy Mail a while ago. Again, I've had them for so long I can't remember who sent them. And these are chipboard, and they're like Gothic houses. So I'm going to be adding these into my assemblage as my background. Fantastic, aren't they? I absolutely love them, but I need to ground them somehow. So I'm going to grab some green paint in a second, and I'm just going to do a wash across the bottom of this paper and just add some green on there. So these have actually got somewhere to kind of sit. So what I need to do is just put a little mark on the paper there and on the paper there, so I know pretty much where to do the wash. So I'm going to bring out one of my little paint mats, put those to one side, and I'm going to grab some of the olive paint from Dina Wakley. Just add a little bit onto my craft mat. I've got a little spritz bottle of water. Just add some water to it. I did say I was going to do a wash, so I'm just going to pick up some of that paint, and then looking where I put the marks, I'm just going to add that paint along the bottom. Just to give it that kind of greenish tint. just build up that colour. I'm hoping the camera's actually picking it up. It is actually changing colour, but it is kind of subtle. It's staining the paper, which is what I wanted. Just add a little bit more. I know it's starting to curl, but that's fine, because I will straighten it out. That's it. Get more of that tint in there. That should do me. So I'll just dry that off and then I'll be right back. Okay, so you can see now where that green has gone on there and it looks a lot darker, but I want to just make that a little bit more pronounced around the edges. So I've got my vintage photo distress ink and I'm just going to bring some of that darkness in around the edge. Just grunge it up a little bit more. Now some of this will be swallowed up by the frame, so I'm going to bring it in a bit of a distance. And then I'm going to swap that for a darker green, like forest moss, I think. Oh, I should have a green. I do. Swap that foam out. That's more like it. A bit more green into there just to create that background and make it a little bit more of a differentiation from the top. I think that will do quite nice. Now I've just brought it up the side a little bit because I just didn't want it to be right on. Yeah, I think I'm going to be happy with that. It's going to be dark enough to do what I need it to do without being too in your face, if you know what I mean. Okay, so we can now start to bring in some of my elements. So bring back that vintage photo, we can swap the foams over and then just add a little bit of darkness around the end. I've got a little bit on my finger, but because it's water based there is a little bit of a laminate on there. That's going to be fine. So I can put my moon up there somewhere and then I can lay my two houses pretty much up there. Now I've got to leave a little gap around the edge for the wooden frame, so I'm going to go about there for them. That's going to leave me plenty of space. Now I'm going to use for this back one some spirit glue and also for the moon, just because I can then turn that so I get the best kind of moon effect, making sure I leave enough space for the frame. Okay, and then this one it's going to do. So I can drop that down about there and then quickly just place that one over the top so I can gauge where about it needs to go. That's going to be about it. So what I've got on this one is I've got a little bit of glue on there I've also got some raised foam pads just for a little bit of dimension. And then I can just carefully just place that just over there where I want it to go. That will do. That's going to stick quite nicely there, and that's perfect. So the next thing, I need to stick down my witches. I want them to stand in front of the house just there. So I can add some glue to the back of those. A little bit on the hat, and then I've got foam pads because it's raised here. About there. So they're going to be right in that corner. See if I can get this straight. There we go. So these little pumpkins, I just thought I'd add those in there just as a little row up to the house. And then I can stick my chappie here. Put that little pumpkin there with the owl. So that's about right for him. Kind of planned, but not, if you know what I mean. I had an idea where I wanted these things to go. That's it. So now I can stick my chappie down. But first of all, I'm just going to put a little dab of glue on his head, on his hand, and then I'm going to put a little spot of glue just on that little floating head there. I've got foam pads on the back of this because obviously it's raised up. This is a raised up area, so the top part will be raised, but the bottom part I'll just need to add these foam pads on just so that it's all level. And then I can add just a little bit of glue to the top and stand him about there. That's just about right. That's where that little foam pad was on his hand, and then I can get this little so all of that is now glued down, which is cool. Which is cool. Haha, did you get it? Probably not. So the other thing I'm going to do is I've just got my Stabilo all pencil, so I'm just going to put a little bit of grounding underneath all of those, and then I'm just going to activate it with my water brush, which I've just got to one side here. Just adds a little bit of shade down that bottom. And I'm just going to add a little bit more down there. Cool. Okay, so one of the things I need to do, and that's grab one of my punches and a piece of black card, a little piece. So I've got a bat punch from Stampin' Up, quite old. One of those will do. And I'm just going to stick that there we go. So I hope when I bring this back that's going to fit. So if I bring back my frame, that's now going to sit. I'll try and tilt it inside that frame quite nicely, but it's missing a little something just from the outside. So I'm going to turn that over, glue this to the back. I'll just make sure that when the back goes back in, the clips are in the right place. That's it. So I'm just going to add a little spot of glue just in those corners, just to hold it. Just push it down slightly. Give it a second or two to grab. And then I can turn that over, drop it into the frame, and then just using my fingernails, just push those clips down so it's going to be holding on, and then turn it over. Haha! But to finish it off, I'll just raise that slightly up there so you can't see the camera. I've got some of the Tim Holtz skulls, the ideology skulls, and Ian kindly ground the backs off so that they were flat. And I'm going to just glue 2 little stacks of these in the corners, actually on the outside of the glass, like so. And to do that, I'm going to use some glossy accents. So first one, just to add a little, just a couple of drops. I'm going to go completely mad with it. Now Ian did me 6. And that one I can put at a little bit of an angle. Because it's the flat backed, it will stick to the glass. With them being made from resin, they're quite easy to sand. Takes a second or two for them to grab. They create a really cool corner. So I'm going to leave those to dry for a minute or two, and then I'll be right back, and then I'll do the highlighting, the final bits of highlighting on that frame. Okay, so those skulls are pretty much now stuck in place, but I just wanted to add, excuse me, just wanted to add a couple of extra little highlights. Now I've got 2 of these little glass vials that I picked up from somewhere, or they may have even been sent in Happy Mail again. And I've just stuck some of the little labels from the Tim Holtz ephemera onto those bottles and filled them full of stickles. This is the spiced marmalade stickles, and I'm not quite sure which one that one is. It might be the seedless preserves. And I just thought they'd be quite cool to add to the front of the glass as well. So I'm just going to add a little bit of glossy accents just to the back, and I'm hoping that it's going to hold it in position, and then set where it is before I do any of the dry brushing. So I'll just turn that one around and add that one to this side. That one says poison. So again, just wait a few minutes for those to grab, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so my little poison bottles are pretty much stuck down, maybe a little bit fragile, but I want to add some dry brushing just to the outside of the frame. And because we've kind of got that coppery background and the oranges from the pumpkins, I'm going to add some copper just to the top. So I've got Dina Wakley Media Penny acrylic paint. I'm only going to take a tiny amount because I don't really need, well, definitely don't need a lot. And I've got a real small flat brush, and I'm going to just take a little bit on the brush, and I'm just going to very gently just go over and pick out some of the grain, and of course those bats, which will just suddenly start to stand out a little bit just as I go around the frame, just dry brushing over the grain of the wood. Just pulling out the texture with a little bit of metallic magic. It just helps to kind of pull it all together. So top dry brush, no water on it at all. Pick up just tiny amounts, work it into the brush, and then just lightly dust over the top of the frame. It just helps to pull out the grain and break up all that black. Now you can go heavier in areas if you want to, or if you wanted you could even break out your metallic waxes if you've got any. I like to go a little bit heavier in the corners and then catch the edges. You can just see the bats starting to appear, lifting from that background. Just adds a nice little bit of texture. I've not had these Dina Wakley metallics very long, so I've not used them that much, so I'm not 100% certain if they have any quirks about them. Try and get a little bit on the inside of the frame too. It doesn't matter if you go on the glass a little bit, because you can always remove that with a scalpel blade at the end when you're finished, when you're happy with it. So I'm just going to keep on going, pulling out that grain from the wood. A little bit heavier in areas, in some areas. I'll just get underneath the skulls, underneath those bottles. And then just blend it really lightly. Like I said, I'm not using a lot. And then just go over the edges. Almost not picking up any paint at all, so it's real light dusting. Very light work. Like I said, you can go heavier in areas. It's not meant to look completely even or even brand new. And then the final bit at the bottom. Not a lot really to talk about while I'm doing this, but it's one of those processes that doesn't really take that long. I'm just looking around the frame just to see if there's any areas where I could add maybe just a touch more. Picking up just small amounts of paint each time and just slowly going round. I think that is just about it. I'm happy with that. The only thing I'm going to need to do is just take the back out when it's all dry. That dry brushing is pretty much dry anyway now, because it's so little paint on the brush, it pretty much dries almost instantaneously. But what I want to do is I just want to take the back out and then clean the inside of the glass again, and then put the whole thing back together again. And I'm trying to do it so you're not getting the camera. I'm trying to do it so you can't see me. Hello, there's me in the reflection. But I'm hoping the photographs that I take at the end won't have too much glare and too much of that reflection from the glass. But that, I think, I'm rather happy with. So that is my All Hallows shadowbox frame. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you did, please remember to give it a thumbs up, share the video with your friends, and if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel already, you can do so by clicking the button at the end of the video. I will see you all again very, very soon. Bye for now. Oh, dirty fingers.